The young and the restless spoilers shadows of the past, the web of secrets, threats, and redemption in the labyrinthine underbelly of Genoa, few truths were as tangled and perilous as those surrounding Holdem. His existence was shrouded in layers of deception, betrayals, and dark secrets that threatened to unravel the very fabric of those involved. The truth about Holdem was far from simple. It was an intricate tapestry woven with threads of old wounds, clandestine meetings, and grudges that spanned years. Each secret, each hidden motive, only deepened the enigma of his character, making him a formidable force with an agenda that seemed driven purely by the desire for retribution. Audra, caught in the crosshairs of this dangerous game, lived in perpetual fear every time she encountered Amy and the impersonated Damien. Their presence was like a ghost from a shared past, a past that now reared its head in the most menacing of forms. Every meeting, every accidental glance, triggered memories of a time when alliances were formed in the dark and secrets were currency. Nate, ever perceptive and now increasingly suspicious, began to wonder if these figures had not only crossed paths before but had been intimately aware of each other's darkest corners. The uncanny familiarity in their eyes suggested a shared history, one that was as ominous as it was undeniable. In an astonishing twist of fate, it was revealed that Holdem was no stranger to Audra's past. In fact, he was her ex-husband, a fact that complicated everything. Their marriage had long since crumbled under the weight of mutual betrayals and bitter regrets, culminating in a divorce that left scars far deeper than any public humiliation. Holdem, however, never truly let go of the bitter residue of their shared history. He knew every dirty detail about Audra's past, secrets that, in the right hands, could destroy her reputation and shatter her resolve. And now, with a cold and calculated determination, he sought to use that knowledge as a weapon. Horrifyingly, Holdem's intentions were not to seek redemption or reconciliation but to exploit these deeply buried secrets to control Audra. With every move, he threatened to drag her past into the unforgiving light of day, using the specter of their previous life together to blackmail her into compliance. His demands were clear: succumb to his wishes, or watch as every unsavory detail of her former life was exposed for the world to see. It was a sinister ultimatum, a dangerous game of emotional extortion that left Audra teetering on the edge of despair. The question now loomed: how long would this vicious cycle of terror and manipulation continue? Nate, whose instincts had been sharpened by years of family and corporate intrigue, began to sense that the very foundations of their world were shifting. His heart was heavy with the possibility that the secrets held by Holdem might not only erode the bonds within his family but also forever alter the dynamics of trust and forgiveness. Would he, in time, uncover the full extent of these concealed truths? And if so, could he ever find it in himself to forgive the transgressions that lay hidden in the shadows? For Audra, the fear was all-consuming. Every day felt like a relentless chase, a desperate flight from a past that refused to be silenced. No matter how far or fast she ran, Holdem seemed to track her every step, his presence a constant reminder that escape was an illusion. His methods were relentless and unyielding, whether through veiled threats on the phone, unexpected appearances in the places she sought refuge, or even whispers among those who once knew them both. Each encounter left her more exposed, her defenses slowly crumbling under the relentless pressure of his pursuit. Audra's internal turmoil was as complex as it was palpable. She had spent years burying the memories of a painful past, convinced that time and distance would eventually heal the wounds of betrayal. Yet, every time Holdem surfaced, those carefully hidden scars were torn open, raw and seething with the intensity of old regrets. The secret of their former life, a chapter marked by both passion and peril, was something she had fought so hard to escape. Now, it was being wielded against her like a sharpened blade, threatening to dismantle the fragile piece she had so painstakingly built. In the midst of this maelstrom, Nate's suspicion grew into a burning need for answers. Observing the charged encounters between Audra and Holdem, and noting the uncanny similarities in the behavior of Amy and the impersonated Damien, he began to piece together a narrative that was as disturbing as it was undeniable. There were whispers that these figures had shared clandestine meetings in the murky depths of their past, a past where alliances were formed in secrecy, and every relationship was laced with ulterior motives. Nate's mind raced with questions. Had Amy and the imposter Damien known Holdem all along? Did they share in his agenda, or were they unwitting pawns in a larger, more sinister plan? The more Nate pondered these questions, the more he realized that the truth was a labyrinth with no clear exit. Forgiveness, once a distant hope, now seemed contingent upon the revelation of every dark secret and the willingness to accept the parts of his family that he had long tried to ignore. Would the full disclosure of these hidden truths drive a permanent wedge between him and those he loved, or could it forge a path toward a new kind of understanding, a reconciliation born out of raw honesty and mutual vulnerability? As the tension escalated, a turning point began to emerge on the horizon. Audra, despite her terror, recognized that perpetual flight was no longer a viable option. The relentless pursuit by Holdem had pushed her to the brink, forcing her to confront the reality that she could no longer let her past dictate her future. In the depths of her despair, she made a silent vow: she would no longer allow the man who once shared her life to continue to haunt her existence. If Holdem wanted to use her past as a weapon, then she would find the strength to face it head-on, exposing the truths that he so desperately sought to keep hidden. Yet the battle was far from over. Holdem's determination was as unyielding as the secrets he guarded, and his threats continued to loom like dark clouds over every aspect of Audra's life. Each day brought new challenges: a phone call laced with menacing undertones, a chance encounter that left her reeling, or a cryptic message meant to destabilize her fragile sense of security. The specter of her past, now weaponized by Holdem, threatened to consume her, leaving her with the stark choice of either submitting to his demands or risking everything to reclaim her identity. In the midst of these personal trials, Nate found himself at a crossroads. His love for Audra warred with his need for truth, creating a maelstrom of conflicting emotions that left him both resolute and uncertain. The possibility of forgiveness lingered like a distant beacon, an ideal that seemed almost unattainable in the face of such relentless torment. Yet deep within, he held on to a fragile hope that the bonds of family could withstand even the darkest of secrets. Perhaps, through understanding and acceptance, he could bridge the chasm that now threatened to divide them. The future of their intertwined lives now rested on a knife's edge. As Holdem's relentless pursuit threatened to upend every semblance of normalcy, Audra realized that the only way to break free was to confront her fears and dismantle the hold that her past had on her present. With trembling determination, she began to formulate a plan. A quiet, resolute strategy to reclaim control over her life, even if it meant confronting Holdem directly and exposing every secret he had so carefully curated. Nate, too, understood that the path forward would be fraught with pain and uncertainty. His journey toward forgiveness was not a linear progression but a tumultuous odyssey through memories, betrayals, and the unyielding weight of the past. The true measure of their resilience would not be found in the absence of secrets or the simplicity of a clean slate but in the courage to face the truth, however painful it might be. As days turned into weeks and the dark saga of Holdem's revenge and Audra's struggle unfolded in the shadowed corners of Genoa, one question remained ever present: how long would this cycle of fear and manipulation persist? And in the quiet moments between the storms of confrontation, would Nate find it within himself to forgive, or would the secrets that haunted them all prove too heavy a burden for any amount of love to bear? Only time would tell if Audra could break free from Holdem's oppressive grip and silence the echoes of a past that refused to remain buried. With every threatening word and every menacing encounter, the battle lines were redrawn, and the future of their fragile world grew ever more uncertain. Yet, in the midst of this darkness, a spark of defiance burned within Audra, a determination to reclaim her life, to confront the demons of yesterday, and to build a future untainted by the sins of the past. The saga of Holdem, Audra, and the tangled web of secrets they shared was not one of simple villainy or clear-cut redemption. It was a testament to the complexity of human relationships, the enduring scars of betrayal, and the unyielding hope that even the darkest secrets could one day be overcome by the light of truth and forgiveness. In the end, the true battle lay not in the external threats but in the inner struggle to reconcile the past with the promise of a better tomorrow, a tomorrow where every secret, no matter how buried, could finally be laid to rest. Buried secrets and the weight of the past, Audra's struggle for redemption in the twisting alleys of Genoa's elite society. Secrets were currency. and the past had a way of clawing its way back to the surface, no matter how deeply buried. Audra Charles, a woman who had fought tooth and nail to build a new life, now found herself ensnared in a web of past betrayals, dangerous alliances, and an unwelcome confrontation with the life she had desperately tried to leave behind. At the heart of it all stood Amy, a woman whose charm concealed a mind as calculating as it was ruthless. Amy knew the truth about Audra's past, and that knowledge gave her power. It was no coincidence that the two women had met in secret on multiple occasions, their conversations laced with unspoken threats and veiled understandings. Audra, despite her carefully cultivated poise, lived under the suffocating weight of uncertainty, knowing that Amy's silence came at a cost. But Amy wasn't the only one holding the key to Audra's past. Holdem, the man whose very existence threatened to dismantle everything Audra had worked for, was no longer lurking in the shadows, he was fully in control. The ex-husband who knew too much, the man who thrived on manipulation, had every intention of using the secrets of their failed marriage as leverage. He didn't want money. He didn't want reconciliation. He wanted control. Holdem's threats had left Audra scrambling, constantly looking over her shoulder, anticipating his next move. Every moment in his presence was a reminder of the past she had fought so hard to escape. He wanted her to obey, to submit, to acknowledge that no matter how far she had come, he still had power over her. Nate's determination. The investigation begins. Nate wasn't blind. He had spent years navigating corporate betrayals, unraveling family dramas, and seeing through deception. He knew Audra was hiding something. Her nervousness around Amy, her visible fear whenever Holdem was near, these weren't mere coincidences. He saw the small tells in her demeanor, the way she avoided direct answers, the way she hesitated whenever her past was brought up. He wanted the truth. But how could he find it when Audra refused to tell him? Amy wasn't talking. Holdem certainly wouldn't confess. And every lead he followed ended in a dead end, blocked by the carefully constructed walls of Audra's past. He couldn't shake the feeling that the connections between Amy, Holdem, and Audra ran deeper than he ever imagined. Nate's frustration grew. He had always been a man who sought control over his circumstances, but this was something entirely different. This was personal. Why wouldn't Audra trust him? Why wouldn't she let him in? What was so terrible that she felt the need to keep it buried, even at the cost of their relationship? Then, Damien arrived. The real Damien. Not the imposter, not the carefully orchestrated illusion that Amy had propped up for her schemes. And with Damien's return, the carefully guarded secrets that Amy and Holdem had been holding onto for so long began to crumble. The fallout, Nate's dilemma and Audra's justification with Damien's return, Amy and Holdem's lies were exposed. The city whispered, gossip spread like wildfire, and the truth that had been hidden for so long could no longer be ignored. For Nate, the revelations were a bitter pill to swallow. Audra had known all along. Maybe she hadn't been involved in Amy's deceptions, but she had known more than she ever let on. She had spent months lying by omission, refusing to let him in, keeping her past locked away like a forbidden chapter of a book she never wanted him to read. And Nate couldn't help but feel betrayed. He had trusted Audra. He had fought for her, defended her, even when people doubted her intentions. But she had never truly trusted him in return. She had chosen silence over honesty, fear over faith, and now he had to ask himself, could he forgive her for it? Audra, however, refused to apologize. Why should she? What had she done that was so unforgivable? Yes, she had a dark past. Yes, Holdem knew things about her that she wished he didn't. But was she supposed to bare her soul just because Nate demanded it? I didn't lie to you, she told Nate, her voice steady despite the storm raging between them. I just didn't tell you everything. To Audra, her past was hers alone to carry. She had survived, rebuilt, and created a life far removed from the woman she used to be. She hadn't deceived Nate. She hadn't schemed against him. She had simply chosen to move forward without dragging him into the darkness she had already left behind. Was that really a crime? Nate, however, couldn't see it that way. To him, trust wasn't selective. It wasn't something that could be half given. He needed to believe that the person standing by his side wasn't hiding things from him. He needed to know that when everything came crashing down, they would stand together, not divided by the ghosts of a past that she refused to acknowledge. The chasm between them widened. Could Nate ever forgive her? Could Audra ever convince him that her silence was not a betrayal, but a survival instinct? Holdem's continued threat. The battle isn't over. Even as Amy's influence began to fade, Holdem remained a problem. With his leverage over Audra weakened, his desperation grew. He was no longer a man holding all the cards, he was a man watching his control slip through his fingers, and that made him even more dangerous. What would he do next? Would he expose Audra's past to everyone, just to watch her crumble? Would he lash out in ways that no one could anticipate? One thing was certain. Holdem wasn't done yet. And as Audra stood at the edge of uncertainty, torn between a past that refused to let go and a future that threatened to disappear, she knew she had a choice to make. Would she continue to run? Or would she finally stand her ground, face Holdem, and reclaim her own story? One thing was for sure, Genoa wasn't ready for what came next.